everyone, welcome back to another video. Thanks for tuning in for another one. Going to bring a topic here that I've been thinking about a lot. It's something that's very near and dear to my heart. If you've ever watched any of the most recent Grail Quest or Mail Days, you know that I'm a big fan of the Mosaic Genesis parallels. And I started thinking, I've ripped a lot of Mosaic from my football and basketball days. Haven't ripped any soccer Mosaic, but obviously I've been buying up a lot. And I was just wondering, how does Mosaic stack up from just a value standpoint relative to other, we'll call them like case hit inserts or case hit chases. And the obvious one being Mosaic Stained Glass, because Stained Glass is part of the same set as Genesis. And as I've been looking to purchase a lot of the Genesis cards that I've purchased, I've seen a lot of Stained Glass cards of similar players that are selling for very high premiums. And so what I wanted to do is dig into the details a little bit and see just how does Genesis compare to Stained Glass, and what does that mean from a hobby standpoint, and what opportunities does that provide for us. So thanks a lot for being a part of this. Like I said, part of this channel is going to be me thinking of questions and going down rabbit holes and then sharing the results with you. So I put here, is one of the greatest parallels in the hobby being overlooked? I truly believe that the Genesis parallels are one of the greatest parallels. Only time will tell if that has any merit, but let's dive into the numbers. So quick disclaimer, obviously not financial advice. I'll say this every time. Do not blindly buy any of the cards mentioned in this video. Don't go buy a bunch of Genesis. Don't go buy a bunch of Stained Glass. Don't go buy a bunch of whatever just because I'm talking about it. This is solely, and I mean solely, meant for entertainment purposes and discussion purposes. I want this to be thought-provoking. I want to, hear what you all think about this. This is not meant to be a, hyped up cards or go buy these cards or these cards are crazy undervalued. This is more, let's look at the data. Let's see what the data is telling us, and then we can draw conclusions from there. I may hold some of these cards or similar cards as those mentioned in the video. As I mentioned, I have been purchasing some Genesis Prisms as part of the Grail Quest challenge. The reasoning for those is that I just think that they're good prices and that they're good value. Not because I'm some Genesis truther, although, like I said, I do love them. Do your own research. That's really what this is all about. Dive into the details, dive into the numbers. Hopefully I can kind of show you one example, and then you can take this and further it and make it even better for yourself. And as always, I'm just a guy on the internet who likes soccer cards, so you probably shouldn't be taking what I say as gospel anyways. Okay, so quick background on the Mosaic set. So Mosaic is a Panini brand. It first appeared as part of the 2015-2016 Prism basketball set. So there's a Prism Mosaic basketball subset. Panini first released a standalone Mosaic set during the 2019-2020 basketball season. This included the likes of Zion Williamson and John Morant, which was also kind of during the peak part of the hobby and sports card market boom. And Mosaic was actually one of the first releases of that year. So I think that kind of gave it a foothold. And since then, they followed up with releases for 2020 football, 2020-21 basketball. They've also entered the soccer card market with the 2020 Euro set and a 2020-2021 La Liga Serie A releases. And this year also marks the first specific release for the Premier League. And there's also a Road to the World Cup. So as you can see, like, Mosaic it's an expanding brand as part of Panini's offering. Is part of that, part of their strategy to try and gain more market share in the soccer card market because they're about to lose their basketball and football licenses to Fanatics. Who knows? But Mosaic seems like it's here to stay, and I think for the most part has received pretty positive reception across the hobby. I personally think a lot of the Mosaic cards are aesthetically pleasing, and aside from some surface defects, especially in the older sets or like the earlier sets, I think are really nice and look really nice for the most part. One thing I would say too is that Mosaic is known for a number of what they call case hit chases. Stained Glass, the Genesis parallels, which you can are found in a retail exclusive. Also the Peacock parallels, which are found in Choice. Overdrive is another insert set that they call the case hit. So there's a lot of these sort of insert and parallel chases in Mosaic, which make it appealing for a lot of members of the hobby. Okay, so let's dive into some numbers. So basically what I did here is I took 6 players from the Premier League that I consider to be well-known players and players that I personally have been looking at just for personal or stylistic preferences, but I wanted to look at, and also because all these players had recent sales of both a Genesis prism and a stained glass insert. So as you can see from Christian Pulisic, Son from Tottenham, De Bruyne from City, Salah, Alexander-Arnold, and Sadio Mane from Liverpool. In all cases, the Genesis prisms are selling for anywhere from 50% to a fifth or so of, or a seventh really, in Sadio Mane's case, the price of a stained glass insert. And this was something that I noticed as I was searching for these players. I kept seeing reasonable prices on Genesis and very high prices on stained glass. And it just got me thinking, do the numbers back up this price discrepancy? And I understand that in hobby, stained glass is viewed or is advertised as a case hit. And I think, with Overdrive, so really it's kind of like an every other case hit. Whereas Genesis is more retail offering. I don't even know if it's a case hit or if it's just, randomly inserted. But I do know back from my days of opening basketball and football that they were very, very, very rare. And so I wanted to dive deeper into not only the prices, but to see just how rare they were from like a pop standpoint. And as you can see here, there's a Mohamed Salah Genesis alongside a Christian Pulisic stained glass, which has, the really cool stained glass, like a church window artwork. So what about other Mosaic releases? So I wanted to check and see, okay, how does stained glass compare to Genesis for other first-year Mosaic releases? So first-year basketball, first-year football, the Euro soccer release, and La Liga. I also wanted to focus on non-rookie stars, mostly because rookies command a premium. You can imagine for 2019 basketball, John Morant, Zion Williamson, I'm pretty sure their PSA 10 Genesis prisms are going for like $1,500. And it just kind of throws the whole comparison out of whack, especially because a lot of the players that I just showed in the previous slide, none of those are rookies. So, and also, even if they were rookies in soccer, rookies are kind of unique for a number of reasons that I won't go into. But as you can imagine, there's many different sets. There's the Panini rookie versus the Topps rookie. There's stickers versus cards. There's all sorts of nuances that are not within the scope of this video. So I wanted to try and keep it simple just for comparison purposes. The other thing I will note is that stained glass is listed as a case hit for this year's 2021 Mosaic Premier League. However, as we'll see, it was not a case hit for older sets. And that's something to keep in mind. It's not quite apples to apples. However, like with a lot of sports card comparisons, from a market cap standpoint, we should expect the market cap of stained glass and the market cap of Genesis for, say, Christian Pulisic. They should generally align. For example, if one had a much higher pop, we would expect the other one to have a much lower price and vice versa. So let's, keep that in mind as we look at some of these other numbers. So the first one we're going to look at is 2019-2020 Mosaic Basketball. I picked Stephen Curry, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Luka Doncic. These are, 3 of the main stars in the NBA. They're not rookies in this set, and they're, I would say, pretty highly desirable in the hobby generally. And as you can see here, if we go column by column, so the first column is I looked at PSA 10s just because it was easy to look at pop reports, and there's enough of them to where they have been, relatively frequently traded to where there's actually some market data. So Genesis PSA 10, we have, Stephen Curry, $700, Giannis, $321, Luka, $680. Pop, right around $60 for all of them. Stained glass, you can see the pop in the fourth column is much higher, about 4 times as high as the Genesis. However, the prices for Steph Curry Stained Glass, $621, Giannis, $315, Luka, $630. So almost identical, a shade under the price for the Genesis, which, as you can see from a market cap standpoint, the Stained Glass has a basically 4x market cap on the Genesis for each of these players. So really interesting to note that same price as Genesis, Stained Glass and Genesis, same price. So Stained Glass has a 4 to 5x market cap across the board. So let's look at football, 2020 football. So here I've picked 3 quarterbacks, non-rookies: Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady. I think pretty well agreed to be the 3 best quarterbacks in the NFL. I guess you could throw Josh Allen in there, but again, that's a conversation for a different video. PSA 10 Genesis, Mahomes, 1,500. Rodgers, just under 300. Tom Brady, 2,000. You can see the pops are a little more all over the place, but still pretty low pop, 15, 50, and 33. Stained Glass, 676 for Mahomes, 305 for Rodgers, 846 for Brady. Again, the pops are anywhere from 1.2 to 4.5x the Genesis, which is kind of crazy. And then if you look at the market caps, looking at almost identical versus almost 2x. One thing I should note here for football and basketball is Mosaic does this weird thing where they will have multiple, in some instances, they'll have multiple base cards for a player, which means those base cards could have multiple Genesis. So for example, Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, they'll have their base Genesis, and then they might have it's kind of like an insert, but it's like a base insert. They might have like an MVP's base insert, which could also have a Genesis parallel. And then they might have like a Pro Bowl like they might have 3 like base cards that could all have a Genesis. For purpose of this comparison, I took the base, like the true base, and the same goes for basketball, where technically the total pop on Genesis is probably higher than the total pop on Stained Glass. But as we get into secondary and tertiary base cards, I debated adding them all together, but it's just if I'm going to buy a Genesis of Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers or one of these guys, I'm going to go for the base Genesis. I'm not going to go for like the NFC All-Star Genesis. But you could argue, at least from a market cap standpoint, that would make things, that would kind of change the picture a little bit. But anyways, just an aside that I wanted to at least acknowledge that, this isn't like perfect. This isn't perfect, but I wanted to at least, provide some comparisons and just show like what some of the numbers say. All right, so in this one, there shouldn't be much debate with the caveat that I just said. So this is the 2020 Mosaic Euro in La Liga. I took Mbappe, Ronaldo from Euro, and Lionel Messi from La Liga. You can see the PSA 10 Genesis, 750 for Mbappe, 930 for Ronaldo, 314 for Messi. Pop reports of 7, 9, and 16 respectively. Stained Glass, on the other hand, pop of 12, 9, 4, so almost identical pop. And honestly, for Messi, a fourth of the pop of Stained Glass. And you just look at the prices; they're anywhere from 2x to 5x almost. And if we look at the market cap, again, it's kind of the same story. Mbappe, it's almost 3 to 1. Stained Glass to Genesis. Ronaldo, it's almost 3 to 1. And then Messi is basically even, which is probably what you would actually expect if you look at the numbers. He has 16 Genesis, 4 Stained Glass. The prices are about 4 to 1 Stained Glass to Genesis, which makes the market cap almost 1 to 1. Like, this is what I would expect to see for all of these players. But as you can see from Mbappe and Ronaldo, the Genesis market cap is severely, I'll say, undervalued in quotes relative to the Stained Glass, just given what the numbers say. So again, just like super interesting in a vacuum, but even more interesting when you layer it on top of football and basketball and some of the other Mosaic releases. So here's just like a quick snapshot of some of the ratios that I put together. So we have the 6 players from Premier League I listed. We have the basketball, we have the football, we have the other soccer. And if you look at the columns highlighted in green, basically what I've done here is you have the ratio of Genesis to stained glass from a pop standpoint, and then you have the price standpoint. And theoretically, the pop and the price should kind of be inverse of one another, right? So if the pop is 1/5, then the price should be 5x and vice versa, right? Which then would make the third column, like you would expect to see the third column be at or near 1. So if you go down the line, we talked about Lionel Messi on the bottom, 0.88, pretty close to 1. The Tom Brady is actually higher, which says that the Genesis is actually maybe overvalued relative to the stained glass. But for all the other cases, Aaron Rodgers is kind of close, but especially basketball and some of the other soccer, you can see it's not even, it's like a third or less, which basically just would suggest, all things being equal, that the Genesis is undervalued relative to the stained glass. So what does this mean, right? Like, this isn't the be all end all, but just based on the data, based on the numbers, what is this saying? So it seems Genesis is undervalued relative to stained glass. Obviously, this would require a bit more digging, and as I mentioned, there are nuances here because stained glass wasn't always a case hit. It is more of a case hit now. But even in the Euro 2020 and La Liga 2020 releases, when stained glass seems to be more of a case hit, just given the pop reports, it still doesn't bear out as we would expect. So there's something happening here, which raises my next question: is I wonder if there's a premium being put on a hobby chase versus a retail chase. And what I mean by that is stained glass is a hobby case hit. Breakers are breaking hobby. People are buying hobby boxes, whereas retail, people are grabbing what they can in the store, but it's not like we're buying cases of retail off of Panini's website, for example. And so I do wonder if the premium put on the hobby chase in stained glass is elevating that card or that set in the minds and the beliefs of the hobby higher than a retail parallel in Genesis. One thing we could look at once it's available is once Choice comes out and we have like Peacock parallels, which are, I think, more akin to like a hobby set. Like, how does that compare to Genesis and stained glass as well? The other thing that could be at play here is that it's possible that the market just prefers the aesthetic of stained glass versus Genesis. I think they're both really awesome looking for different reasons. I do love like this. I mean, the stained glass, how it looks almost like you're looking at like a church. I think that's super cool. The one thing I don't love about the stained glass is that the cards themselves just kind of look like the regular silver mosaic parallel. Like, if you've seen the regular silver mosaic parallel, it's just got like the silver kind of squared mosaic pattern. It's kind of what stained glass looks like, aside from the the design underneath. Whereas Genesis looks like you're in outer space when you're looking at a Genesis card. And in addition, like, typically, like, if you think of other sets or other things that are valuable, like, typically parallels hold more weight than inserts. So like a rare parallel is generally higher value than a rare insert. Now there are exceptions, which I mentioned here: kabooms, national landmarks, other chase insert hits. I think those are seen as slightly different than maybe rare parallels of other inserts, if that makes sense. So like a gold Chasing Glory from Topps Chrome is viewed differently than a kaboom, for example. Even if there are only 10 of the gold parallels of that insert. I also think that, like, if Premier League follows other Mosaic releases, we could expect Genesis to remain undervalued. And what I mean by that is, you look at basketball, you look at all the numbers we just showed. From a market cap standpoint, Genesis seems undervalued. And even in the most recent soccer sets, it seems like from a price to price standpoint, Genesis is not seen as, it's not seen as that luxury good. It's more the Toyota Prius versus the BMW. And again, like, does that go back to the premium being put on hobby versus retail? Maybe. And if so, and even if that is the case, like, what does that mean? Is there opportunity there? Can we focus on more rare retail parallels? It's something to think about. It's something that I'd love to kind of dive deeper on it and talk more about, because in the hobby, it's all about trying to find opportunities, and it's not necessarily being contrarian for contrarian's sake, but I think it is being contrarian when you have data to back it up. And to me, this seems like an opportunity where it at least warrants further discussion. Obviously, we have to continue to track pop reports. The big caveat for this year's Mosaic Premier League is that all of the prices that I was looking at don't have pops attached to them. We don't know the print runs. We could guess based on looking at other years or similar sets, but really until some of these start getting graded, we won't really know the true rarities. And it'll be interesting to see how the prices change once those rarities come into more focus. And finally, again, I mentioned this before, but just comparing Genesis and Stained Glass to other sets outside of Mosaic. So comparing them to Kaboom, comparing them to National Landmarks, getting a sense of, Stained Glass versus Kaboom versus National Landmarks, the true chase inserts. How do those stack up across similar years, similar players? And then where does Genesis fit in either amongst those or amongst other, rare parallels or rare retail parallels? I do think that, to Mosaic's credit, they're one of the at least more recent examples of truly rare retail parallels. They have a orange fluorescent, they have a gold fluorescent, pink fluorescent. Until this year, at least in other sports, the orange fluorescent used to be numbered to 25, pink fluorescent to 10. Those are all retail parallels in addition to the Genesis. So to their credit, they've been putting very low number parallels in their retail products. It remains to be seen how the hobby sort of accepts those, across other hobby parallels as well. But we'll have to just continue to track the pops and look at prices in order to know for sure. So that'll basically do it. I mean, what do you guys think? So I kind of put some side by side here. We have Salah and Sun from top row is Genesis, bottom row is Stained Glass. I mean, I love both of them. I think they're both super cool looking. Do I love Stained Glass 4 or 5 times more than Genesis? I don't know that I can say that, but would love to hear what you guys think. Obviously the market drives, the market is the market. I could have my own opinion, you could have your own opinion, but ultimately it's the collective market that's going to decide what's valuable and what's not. And currently the market says that Genesis is about 1/4 to 1/2 at most valuable as Stained Glass. So would love to know what you guys think. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And yeah, thanks for tuning in, and I'll talk to you guys soon.